Good morning. It's Friday, November 14, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, following talks in Amman, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says that Israel and Jordan have agreed on ways to reduce tensions in Jerusalem. However, he added that it is not the right time for Israelis and Palestinians to return to the negotiating table. The British-Iranian woman jailed in Tehran for protesting outside a national volleyball game where women were told they couldn't attend could be facing charges of spying that carry a potential 6-year sentence. And later on in the show, everything you need to know about the signing of Google's 60-year lease with NASA. Good morning, I'm Meredith Ross. We begin in the Middle East this morning. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry met Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, Jordan's King Abdullah, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jordan for talks aimed at restoring calm following a wave of violence throughout Israel and the occupied territories. After meeting with President Abbas and holding trilateral talks with Netanyahu and Abdullah, Kerry said that the Jordanian and Israeli leaders have agreed on ways to quell tensions in Jerusalem. However, he revealed that he didn't think it is the right time for the Palestinians and Israelis to return to peace talks. To hear more about it, we are joined in studio by political blogger Tal Schneider. Thanks for being here,
Good morning. How are you?
And Channel 2 Foreign Affairs editor Arad Nir.
Good to be
both
here.
for being here. But before we begin, let's hear some of Kerry's comments last night at the press conference in Amman.
There are firm commitments, particularly from the custodian of the Holy Mosque as well as Israel, to guarantee that they will take these steps. I know the first question will be, so exactly what are those steps? And the answer is, we're not going to lay out each practical step. It is more important that they be done in a quiet and effective way, but they will be noticeable and they will be effective. And I am convinced of that. Prime Minister Netanyahu traveling here to make the effort to have this discussion, King Abdullah being willing to host it, and the length of time we spent discussing it makes it clear to me that they're serious about working in the effort to create this de-escalation, to take steps that will instill confidence that the status quo will be upheld. Prime Minister Netanyahu strongly reaffirmed Israel's commitment to uphold the status quo on the Haram al-Sharif, Temple Mount, and to implement these steps, to smother the sparks of immediate tension so that they don't become a fire that is absolutely out of control. And the first thing we have to do is restore calm before you can talk about other alternatives. I was pleased that all of the leaders today, particularly Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Abbas earlier today, made clear their desire to see this situation de-escalate and to move in the right direction.
So, Tal, let's begin with you. So, according to Kerry, he seems pretty confident at this time. And interestingly enough, both the Israelis, Abbas and Netanyahu, have kind of the same message. They're both committed to calming down the situation. So where does it go from here?
The big question is if they are controlling the area, if they're really controlling the people, specifically on the Abbas side. I don't know how much of the Palestinians are still into revolting and going into demonstrations. So I hear some optimism from him, but I'm not always sure that there is, a direct line between what he says and the way. Also in Israel, you must say, how much the Jewish population wants to keep on, the little steps, the baby steps that we're taking in order to, go up on the mountain. So it seems to me, if you look a year ago on November 2013, we are just, going back in reverse. I mean, we hear him right now standing and saying up front that this is not a time for a meeting between Abbas and Netanyahu. So we got to the step where the leaders of the region can't even sit together and meet. That's, pretty distressful.
And you mentioned something about Abbas not necessarily saying many things at this time and not seeming to be so involved in preventing the revolt. I mean, here in Israel, this has been an issue at the table. This has been.
Well, he said specifically. He pointed at Abbas and Netanyahu to calm the area down. Again, the big question is how much control they have on, on the people.
Right.
So it seems to me that it's a bit disconnected from reality. But who knows? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And was it a surprise, Arad, that Netanyahu went to Amman in the first place?
No, it's not. It's not a surprise. It's quite unfortunate that he had to be summoned to Amman by Kerry and go through a process that could have been finished in one telephone conversation, should there be any trust between the sides. In order to reaffirm Kerry's statement about agreements and one-mindedness, etc., there's one ingredient that is missing, which is a handshake between Netanyahu and Abbas. Such a handshake could have been the actual reassurance of this mutual trust that suddenly allegedly emerged between the sides. I'm not optimistic. I wish I could be carried away with this optimism that Kerry is trying to shed around him. But unfortunately, we are in the Middle East. The first test will obviously be today, when, as you said in your opening remarks, all the restrictions for people to come into Temple Mount will be lifted. There will be no restrictions today.
Is this part of perhaps the discussions that occurred in Amman, saying
that
the status quo will be restored?
This is part of the discussion. This is part of the trust-building measures, if you want to put it this way. And let me say it this way: even if 99.9% of the people that will come into Temple Mount this afternoon or this morning will act exactly as they are expected. It's enough for one person to throw one stone, which is abundant over there, the stones I mean, and to ruin it all. So this is not the way to build trust between the sides. Now,
you can take point into two other points. The Jordanian ambassador is not back in Jerusalem, as we said before. So people are still holding back. And the second point I wanted to make is that Kerry is not visiting Jerusalem and Ramallah, and he's choosing to go to Amman. And that gives you another diplomatic
neutral space.
That gives you another diplomatic aspect of the whole thing. Whereas Kerry probably feels that he's unwelcomed in Israel. I mean, last time he left here, he got bunch of comments that were not appropriate and apologies, and that, you probably see when you see this, the three of them are sitting, the frozen environment in the room. This is this is not good. Doesn't seem like warm relationship between leaders of the area plus United States. I mean, we wish we could have regular meetings like that, and not something that seems like from the photo not even warm enough to talk about things.
Yeah. This just proves
it took 3 hours the meeting also.
Yeah.
So.
And this just proves, sorry, Mary, that this American move is considered as a remedy, not as an initiation of any protest. It's like an emergency remedy that they are trying to bring into the region in order to lower the flames. It doesn't show any continuous commitment from the American side to get into the process
again.
again.
It's just a temporary fix.
The horizon that the Prime Minister were talking about in August, where is the horizon? It's gone.
Yeah, well, joining the conversation now via Skype from Modi'in is Channel 9 Arab Affairs correspondent Senia Svetlova. Thank you for joining us this morning, Senia.
Good morning.
Now, how do you weigh in on this? We've been talking about restoring the status quo on the Temple Mount as a result of these talks in Amman. Men of all ages, women, Arab women will be able to pray there today, even though it may be tense, as Friday prayers normally are. Also in the Arab neighborhood of Isawiya, where there were rioting and clashes last night, concrete blocks will be lifted. How do you weigh in on this? What do you think will happen today?
Well, I, like everybody else, I hope for that the peace and quiet will be restored on Temple Mount and in Jerusalem and in the area in general. However, it's really hard for me to believe that something will really change in the atmosphere just because of this move, as my colleague said here previously. It's enough that one person with one stone or Molotov cocktail will do a wrong step, and then again, a turmoil can start here very easily. Also, I hear the reactions from the Palestinian side. Jibril Ajoub has reacted already this morning, and I'm hearing also some other politicians talking now on Palestinian television, on Palestinian websites, and most of them, they're saying that, okay, Netanyahu succumbed to the pressure of, Kerry and Abdallah, but this is not really, a deal breaker. it's not something that will ultimately change, the atmosphere also in Jerusalem and also in everything that has to do with the settlement construction and the expansion of settlements. This is not what we expect. We expect to start from anew. And this is something that is obviously not going to happen, So it's a nice step. Al-Aqsa is really important. It's very important. We can talk to anybody from, Nablus to Hebron to Gaza, and people will say, yes, we carry Al-Aqsa in our heart. If we are allowed to go there, and there is no age restriction, it's fine. But let us not forget that only people with Jerusalem IDs are allowed, first of all, yes? Not the, Palestinians who live in more remote areas and do not hold the blue card. This is first of all. And nobody knows also what will happen next Friday or the Friday after that. It's not a Torah from Sinai, so this is something that it's a good step for today. It's a positive step. I'm not, denouncing it or anything like this, but it's certainly a very small one, and certainly the one that should be followed by many, many others from both sides.
And you're echoing what Arad said here, that it is what appears to be a temporary fix only and not a long-term solution. But what also should be mentioned is a Hamas spokesman said recently that the ceasefire is hanging on by a thread, especially considering these tensions. So we have Palestinians in the West Bank and Jerusalem and Palestinians in Gaza. It's very, very tense. Could we be seeing also an escalation in Gaza at some point?
Well, Gaza, it was a question mark from the beginning, because as we all saw it, when there was a deal reached in the end of the war, there was no significant change, basically, as far as Hamas is concerned. There is no big victory. There are no even small victory that we can talk about, from the point of view of Hamas. They reached basically nothing right now, yes? So they got all this money confirmed to them, but they also had a lot of money confirmed to them by international donors during the Cast Lead and during the previous operations. They cannot reach this money without the help of Mr. Abbas. And the relations between Fatah and Hamas are again going to the very dark spot and very low level. And again, we have the cancellation of the commemoration ceremony for 10th anniversary of Yasser Arafat death, and we have again, mutual accusations. I was listening yesterday to a radio station of Fatah. They were very militant toward Hamas. Once again, as there were no reconciliation government. So how can they reach this money? How can they get this money? If they will not get any money, they will not be able to reconstruct Gaza. Obviously, for now, they cannot. So the winter is already here. The people are unsatisfied. The level of the desperation in Gaza, it's immense. We cannot even imagine, how the popular feeling on the street. So Hamas, they are really afraid that the people will turn against them eventually. They will do some steps to prevent it, obviously. If it involves, some breaking the, ceasefire and sending rockets here and there, yes, there's a possibility.
Okay, and we're turning back to the studio now. Is this a possibility? Are Israelis at this moment, especially as tense as it is, expecting to hear sirens?
I'm sorry.
No, the Israelis forgot altogether about what happened in Gaza. They don't care about what's going on in Gaza. It's not part of the discourse of the Israeli public or the Israeli media, the situation in Gaza. If sirens will come out eventually one of these days, the Israelis will be surprised as if nothing have ever happened.
So they forget quickly.
On the other hand, Israel is regular for attacks from entire areas of the region. So I'm not. I don't agree. It seems like I don't think they're expecting in it, but it might happen. So.
No, it might happen,
yeah,
but I don't think that the Israelis do care now about what's going on in Gaza.
No, exactly.
All the devastation that may cause some kind of action from the Gazans is not
That's
even
true.
Part of the Israeli discourse
right
because
now.
we do not discuss what is going on in Gaza now. And if something will burst from there, we will all be suddenly surprised as if there's no Gaza.
And speaking of security measures, Netanyahu held an emergency meeting. How to handle the security situation, as we saw this week, was full of attacks in Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank and in Tel Aviv. Now, how do you draw that fine line between beefing up security and then protecting Israeli citizens, and also showing the Palestinians that you're trying to give a little trust here?
Well, first off, they took off the barricade in Issaouia in East Jerusalem, the French Hill, last night. But I have to tell you that Netanyahu is being severely attacked from the right wing. I mean, maybe we don't hear it on the mainstream media so much, but if you hear the conversation, the discourse between right wing, he's being attacked with his Minister of internal security for not doing the right thing for the Israeli. Ask the Israeli what is the right thing, who knows? I mean, it's problematic because you are dealing with citizens of Israel, some of them, if you talk about also in the northern region and also in Jerusalem. So it's impossible to handle, the population like that in such severe measures and get people killed and then expect, a total security from any person on any person. I mean, you can't really. So, if you look at the whole thing from top, to my opinion, the main problem is that the current government has made the security situation so deteriorated into a place where it can't really control what's going to happen next. Impossible.
Right. Yeah, well, the point is that if we go back to one of the issues that initiated these flames is the killing of the Arab youngster in Kfar Kana in the beginning of the week. This was not a nationalistic event. This was a total a criminal event in the very beginning, but mainly the Israel or the Jewish Israeli side actually diverted it or helped the other side to divert it into a nationalistic issue, and this suddenly burst the flames all over. So I think that for at least for the last 48 hours, the situation has been calm.
It has been relatively calm.
It has been relatively calmed. Now, I don't know if because there's no will on the other side to get into a real confrontation, or because of the preventative measurements that were taken by the Israeli security forces. But let's hope that this remains. But in order for this to remain, there has to be a plan. There has to be an horizon offered to the other side, and this is not in the agenda. The Israeli leadership does not see any other option or any other situation than what is going on the ground now. They claim that the Palestinians have their own autonomy, political autonomy, economical autonomy. They are not willing to give anything more than that. This is the current Israeli leadership.
To a further step, even the political leaders from the right wing taking advantage of the situation and causing a stir within the Arab society with comments you hear from foreign affairs ministers and from Victor Lieberman, not on a daily basis, but once a week at least, he is, steering the area.
Lieberman not on a daily basis, Bennett on a daily basis.
Bennett, Commerce Minister Bennett, and other ministers from the right wing, Uzi Landau, Yair Shamir, and others, they are, making public statements that are, hurting and steering the. So you have this political game where they gain a lot from steering the environment from the right wing voters, and they do it. I mean, sometimes I feel like they do it on purpose, and there is no really will from this side of the political map to calm things down and talk to the Arab society. So you only saw Herzog and Livni. He's the opposition leader. She is the left side of the government,
she's
sitting
the
together.
Within the government.
Yeah, she's the opposition within the government. Both of them sitting together with Arab leaders the other day and trying to talk to them. You don't see the prime minister, inviting Arab leaders, mayors that want calm and want quiet and talk to them. They are just they're shoved out of the Israeli discourse, the main political.
So is this more or less the root of the problem? Why there's no progress being made? Is there so many divides within the Israeli government that
some of it
only the opposition is willing to really sit down?
The opposition and you don't see opposition is not enough. I mean, opposition can do it as much as it wants to, but has no effect and no authority. As long as the prime minister office with his cabinet are not, thinking of a long-term strategy how to talk to the Arab leaders. And I'm not talking just to the streets, talking to mayors and, city council and, bringing them in. There's not even, it's not even there. It's not even in the thought.
Mm-hmm. And Arad, you mentioned the Kfar Khana incident, and Ksenia is still with us. Ksenia, we understand you were in Kfar Khana where this 22-year-old man was shot by police. What was the feeling there? How are people reacting to this?
Well, I was just meaning to add that, there is no plan on the Israeli side. There is no plan also on the other side. Yeah. It was a spontaneous reaction to something that seems it is not a phenomenon, but it's a lasting problem. It's the mistrust between the Arab public and the police. It's the mistrust between the Arab public and the government. So the people are young, the demonstrators, they are really young. Most of them, they were teenagers. I was speaking to them and I saw that they do not really know what to say. They didn't know what to say to me as well, why they're there, except for, they want to avenge the death of their relative or their friend. But it seemed that, also the elders that came to ease the situation a little bit, to talk to the youngsters, to try to convince them to go home and not to get into jail and not to, move further with these demonstrations and manifestations. Also them, they had so much pain and hurt, because all of them, they was repeating the same phrases. This is not something that is happening today. It's happening to us since 1948. It's the Kfar Qasim massacre. It's the arrests. It's the brutal handling of, Arab Israelis everywhere, So they don't have a plan, it's spontaneous. So if there will be some measures undertaken by Israeli government, which is really hard for me to believe at this moment, the public might react, might surprise you with their reaction, positive reaction to some positive measures.
Mm-hmm.
I beg to disagree with Ksenia, whom I immensely appreciate, but I think that there is a plan on the other side. There is an ultimate plan. There's a plan to go to the Security Council in the UN and ask for a unilateral declaration of a statehood. And they had the first a victory on this path in Sweden. And by the end of next month, the French Parliament is going to discuss unilateral recognition of the Palestinian state. Well, this is a plan. This is maybe not the ultimate plan, and this is definitely not the plan that Israel adheres to, but this is a plan. This
and
is
I think
the
Ksenia was referring to the Israeli Arab population as opposed to Ksenia. Is that correct? This was a
yes. I was meaning, of course,
my immense appreciation to her is still intact.
It's true that there is not a plan with respect to them as well. I mean, you look at the data, you look at the discrimination, you look at the fact that there is no even one new city in the Arab population that was built since, for years now. So you look at the discrimination within budgets and within infrastructure within the villages, and you see it all come in together when there is a demonstration like that. You see the tension and the dissatisfaction from ignoring them rise up. I mean, this is not, something that we want to see. We don't encourage violence, but you don't see the Israeli government taking any steps that are long-term in order to talk to them. Like I said, meeting with the mayors, that, might be at least a step, a goodwill step. And it doesn't have to be the prime minister itself. It can be someone on his behalf. But you don't they leave the vacuum to the opposition leader who has, as I said, no authority to handle this. So the police, can do as much as it wants up to a limit. Mm-hmm. But it can control.
And more than that, as you said earlier, all the statements that come out from the Israeli government ministers, not
some of them,
not just politicians. A minister of foreign affairs. These are inflammatory statements, trying to alienate the Palestinians living in Israel, or the Palestinians who are citizens of Israel as they define themselves, and this is really worrying.
Mm-hmm. And they are kind of stuck in this chasm, shall we say, between living in Israeli territory but feeling loyal to the Palestinian side. So it's a difficult.
You can talk about, if you want to talk about, the general area philosophy, which might be, it sounds a little bit of disconnected from reality. But if Israel would change the game and start to think as Israeli Arabs as negotiator, instead of as the other, or instead of as the enemy, think of them as the in between. They have cousins, they have family, they can be, they come and go. You can use them. I mean, I'm not saying use them, but you can get them to help us instead of looking at them. What's going on in the Israeli society today, as being dictated by the government, is look at them as the enemy. Be afraid of them. Don't learn their language. Don't, maybe don't hire them. That's a huge problem that needs, what I'm saying right now needs a total change of discourse, which, to my opinion, is we're not even close there.
It's an alienation. And Ksenia, I'm curious, when you were there this week, did they say anything about the Palestinian Authority, how they're handling the situation, and the Israeli government, for that matter? How are they feeling? Do they feel supported by any side?
Well, no, that was striking for me, because for the first time, perhaps, I've been, going around and interviewing people in different areas in the Arab sector and the Palestinian Autonomy. There was not one single word, not about Al-Aqsa and not about Palestinian Authority. Yes, of course, they were chanting, some of them were chanting, death to Israel and Viva Palestine and this kind of things. But, this is something, it's kind of traditional. We are talking about young guys, some of them, they were, I think, under 15, maybe 14 or 13. But there were no talk about, the big thing, the big conflict, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. They were referring to their own situation in Kafr Kana, in Kafr Qasim, in Taiba, is being spotted, as the wrong citizens, being treated less than, the Jewish citizens, being treated as B or C rate citizens, So this is something that was really painful to hear, They couldn't really articulate it. They couldn't really, put it in one sentence, but that's what I got from, standing there for more than an hour on the other side of the barricades, and talking to these guys with, balaclava with the masks on their faces. They really, they were not sent by anybody. This is what I mean. They didn't have clear demands. They said, treat us, please, like human beings. This was striking inside Israel, inside Israeli city, to hear, treat us like human beings. Why are you treating us, not only in this case, but everybody showed to me some injuries, some of them, from confrontations with the police. Everybody, they were like 10 or 15 guys, young guys, and all of them that had injured. I don't know. I am not, cannot testify that they were not injured before, that they were not injured in some internal clashes. I don't know that.
Well, it is quite obvious that there are a lot of complexities on both sides of this conflict, and a lot of change needs to be made, as Tal said here. Ksenia, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And Tal and Arad, thank you very much for contributing to this conversation. And coming up next, a Briton jailed in Tehran after trying to attend a male-only volleyball match might face 6 years in prison after the regime accuses her of spying. But first, let's hear some of this morning's headlines. Welcome back. Let's say hello and good morning to Anthony Grant, who joins us daily to discuss the news you missed while scanning the headlines. Tony, what do we have?
Good morning. First of all,
good morning.
Yes, nice to see you. Here's a headline that actually kind of fell between the cracks, but kind of interesting, alarming in a way, from Haaretz, which says that ISIS reps visited Pakistan.
Moderately alarming.
Yeah, hoping to link up with militants there. Yeah. And this was a story that was originally reported in the Pakistani Express Tribune. The Pakistani government is kind of downplaying and or denying this, but if it's true, it would sort of raise alarm bells in certain capitals, because of course Pakistan has its own problems with extremist groups. Lakshar Janvi, which is a Sunni group that's extremist, and they could have sympathizers for ISIS. So again, that's kind of an alarming situation. on the back burner for now, but
Yeah.
still.
No, that is it is extremely alarming. We'll see what comes of this if this report is true.
Yeah, and how the government responds to this this alleged.
How the world will respond to this. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think the West will allow ISIS to enter this region, but you never know. They move really fast.
And concern for India too, of course, because they have their own issues with of extremist actions, terrorist activity as well. So again,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens
Very
on that
scary stuff.
that
Yeah.
score. On diplomatic news, in a good sense, we have from Bashar Al-Assad, which reports that Saudi Arabia is going to be opening an embassy in Baghdad soon. I should say reopening.
Okay.
And this is a very big deal because, of course, the Saudi embassy in Baghdad has been closed since 1990 when Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist regime invaded Kuwait.
Right.
So the fact that now they are saying they're going to reopen the embassy very, very soon at a time when Iran is kind of flexing its diplomatic, shall we say, muscle in Iraq. This is a way for Saudi Arabia to say, hey, we're also a player in this region.
That's
so
right.
It's
I think we can welcome any sort of good, positive news in the Middle East. This is a good sign.
Yeah, I think that is, and so
Yeah.
we'll be following that too. And speaking of diplomacy, of course, the G20 summit begins today in Brisbane, Australia. As it does, Russia is actually sending warships to quote-unquote shirt-front Australia. And this was reported actually in the National Post, a Canadian newspaper. But what's going on here is that Tony Abbott, I'm going to say the Prime Minister of Australia, actually he said last month that he was going to shirt front, which basically means kind of confront Putin over the Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 crash, basically over Ukraine, when he would meet him in Australia. It was kind of like a diplomatic taunt. He wanted to, ask him questions about it, a possible Russian implication on some level.
And you don't taunt Russia.
You don't taunt
That's
Russia because what you
don't
get is
do.
warships like those
Yeah.
coming.
Look at this image. Wait, this is a Russian
no,
warship?
that's not. That's it. That's actually a picture of the of an Australian Anzac class frigate, which now are going to be shadowing the Russian warships that are coming toward Australia. So again, it's Russia flexing its military might as a show of the fact that it's Russia and a force to be reckoned with.
Right.
But just adding to the tensions surrounding this world powwow, basically.
Yeah.
And who knows what happens when Putin meets Abbott? I'm sure it's going to be not the most cordial
He won't be offering him
conversations.
his coat.
I don't think so. Yes. So interesting to see what
Yeah.
happens with that. And of course, recently Putin has been authorizing overflights of Russian planes over the Gulf of Mexico
I
too.
heard about
So
this.
all over
He's
the
just-
world,
yeah.
Russia is just flexing its military biceps.
Absolutely.
Turkey, interesting stuff happening there. We have here a headline from Hurriyet, Turkish newspaper, saying the suspected attackers of U.S. sailors in Turkey have been freed. As a reaction against the incident mounts. What happened here, of course, is it was on November 12th. About a dozen members of a Turkish ultra-nationalist youth organization basically followed 3 American Navy sailors as they were leaving a ship that was doing some exercises in the area, very normally so, and basically attacked them, put bags over their head. The sailors got away. Unfortunately, you might say, they actually, the prosecutor let them go without even having made a deposition. So again, it's mixed signals about
And that sounds quite a message to extremists like this, like your behavior is okay or something.
Yeah, in a way, and we're talking about a NATO ally here.
Yeah, these are
and
allies.
And the military, the U.S. military, at least in that area of Turkey, of course, is understandably alarmed by the precedent that may set. So again, they will be following it a lot in the Turkish press, sort of the consequences, hopefully legal, of the guys that were behind the assault, basically.
Yeah.
Very anti-American.
Well, it sounds
to
like
say
they
the
may
least.
not have any
Or they may not,
consequences
yeah.
at this point if they're released. So.
So there's that.
Interesting
as well. And interesting, there was an interview in La Repubblica the other day, a big paper out of Italy, of Suha Arafat, the late Yasser Arafat's widow, and basically talking about what she thought what she thinks Yasser Arafat would think about the state of affairs in the region today, 10 years after his death. Interestingly,
what do you have to say?
She said things like that Arafat never would have imagined Gaza as being an Islamic or Islamist, if you will, state. So, which is interesting on that level, and that also that. She thinks that armed struggle will only lead to the Palestinians as a nation being crushed, and that's not the way forward. So it's interesting, not that anyone is paying that much attention to what she says, but the fact that she is interviewed in a leading Italian newspaper, it does generate some interest.
And her ideas go against a bit of what is happening and what a lot of people feel in Gaza, especially Hamas leaders who
definitely
view it
against
as
the
an
grain
Islamic
of things in Gaza. Yeah, so interesting to
hear her
see.
weigh in on that, especially 10 years after his death.
Exactly.
This week.
The Guardian talks about of course, the soccer, the FIFA report saying that alleged corruption. Actually, Qatar has been cleared to host the 2022 World Cup. This is after an 18-month investigation by former New York District Attorney Michael Garcia, saying there was not sufficient evidence to justify stripping either Russia or Qatar of the 2018 or 2022, respectively, World Cup tournament. But Garcia is actually going to be appealing the judge's decision to close the corruption probe. So again, it's this ongoing saga of alleged corruption in the inner ranks of soccer's or football's highest governing body. So I don't think it's the end of the story, actually.
And there's also a lot of issues regarding foreign workers and building there for this World Cup.
In Qatar, it's very controversial there.
It's kind of a mess.
Yeah. So we'll see how that shakes out in the days
Okay, so
ahead.
let's finish on
Los Angeles Times.
A lighter, more interesting one.
I don't know if we would talk about the U.S. China climate change deal, which is already facing challenges, but it's not really lighter. But there you go, because Republicans might be obstructing the passage of relevant portions of that of that deal in the American Congress now after the drubbing that the Democrats took in the midterm elections. And Andy Warhol painting broke all records.
That's incredible.
At auction.
How much did it go for?
$82 million for triple Elvis.
For a painting?
Well,
That's incredible.
3 Elvises on one canvas.
Amazing.
I mean, how can you complain about a price tag when Elvis is involved?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but it's definitely a record breaker.
That is really impressive. Wow.
3 cheers for Andy Warhol.
Incredible. Well, Tony, thanks for this. We'll see you later on for the web review. And on to our next topic. Onche Ghavami is a 31-year-old British-Iranian woman who has spent the last 5 months in jail in Tehran for taking part in a peaceful protest outside a volleyball match. The reason for the protest, authorities said women, including female journalists, could not attend the event. Now she'll be facing charges of spying that carry a potential 6-year sentence. This next report has the latest on the case that has captured international attention.
25-year-old Onche Ghavami is a British-Iranian law graduate being held in solitary confinement in a Tehran prison for protesting for equal access to sporting events in Iran. She was first arrested on June 20th at the Azadi Stadium, where Iran's national volleyball team was to play Italy. She was part of a brief demonstration which began after female fans and even women journalists were told they would not be allowed to attend the game. Following a secret hearing in Tehran, she was found guilty of spreading propaganda against the regime and now faces spying charges that carry a potential 6-year sentence.
I still don't believe that she would be kept there for that long in that prison, in that section of the prison, for just for wanting to watch a volleyball match.
Ghavami was initially held in the maximum security wing of Tehran's Evin prison, where she went on a hunger strike to protest the conditions of her detention. She has since been moved to an open women's prison last week and abandoned her hunger strike. Relatives said she had lost 9 kilos in weight.
She did not break a single law, and she has been in that prison for 127 days.
The International Volleyball Federation announced it will not allow Iran to host international events as long as women are banned from attending the game. The country was already told it would not be able to organize the Under-19 World Championship in 2015.
We consider the FIVB decision disrespectful toward the Iranian nation and the million of volleyball fans in Iran. It's wrong to say that a woman was arrested for watching volleyball. She was not in the Azadi arena. She was not even inside the Azadi stadium. She was arrested outside the arena by an official.
Her brother Iman, who lives in London, is very active on the social media in organizing a campaign to promote her release. His sister was arrested for acting against the security of the country and for links with foreigners. Thanks to the actions of the Iranian authorities, that is exactly what happened.
And to discuss this further, we are joined from London by I-24 News UK correspondent Jonathan Sastrodati. Good morning, Jonathan. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Meredith.
Now, considering all the media attention this is getting, and obviously, as we saw in the last report, volleyball teams around the world are gathering together to protest her detention. Do you think Iran will release her, considering all this attention it's getting? And what is the British government doing about it?
It's hard to know what will happen next. The British government is obviously expressing its concern at her arrest and then her treatment, and especially their concern at the charges which she's being put up for. But it's not clear that there's anything the British government can actually do, despite good intentions, because she is a dual citizen, both of Iran and of the United Kingdom. And in those circumstances, it's very hard under international law for Britain to do anything when she's in the country, which she's actually also a citizen of. So really, the British are expressing their urge for something to be done, but it's not clear what pressure they can actually bring to bear. And as you saw there in the report, since 1979, women in Iran have been forbidden from watching men play sports or from mixing with male spectators. So when she wasn't necessarily in the crowd watching the sport, she was outside the crowd protesting against it, and they have brought these trumped-up charges of espionage as soon as they found out that she was in fact a dual British citizen. Some have suggested that this is an attempt to undermine the often incorrectly labelled moderate Hassan Rouhani by the more extreme forces in Iran, who want to undermine his upcoming détente with the West and show that they are still strong and powerful against the West in countries like Britain. So really, she is a pawn in a much bigger game between the West and Iran.
And you know, one detail in the story that is said to have become a struggle between political factions. So are there more complexities here than meets the eye within the Iranian system?
Within the Iranian system, it's believed that there are those who do not like the détente that seems to be upcoming between the West and Iran itself, of course, with those nuclear talks being the most noticeable part of that. We also have to bear in mind, though, that Hassan Rouhani is not quite the moderate that many in the West have wanted him to be. During his first year in office, 773 people were executed, compared to 530 people during Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's last years in office. And that's according to data from the Iran Human Rights Documentation Center. So even if we do look at this as some sort of internal power struggle within Iran, we would be wrong if we considered it a struggle between one very reasonable moderate side and one more extreme side, again showing that the hope for this poor woman who is being kept in prison now, possibly for up to 6 years, under the new charges being brought against her, we would be foolish if we believed that this is a done deal and that with a little bit of British pressure she will be released. But of course that is the hope of her family and of the British government, that somehow or other they can negotiate some sort of release for her, and she may be pardoned from these trumped up charges of espionage and endangering national security, neither of which seems very likely for a newly graduated student from SOAS here in London, who is simply working out there to help street children learning to read through a charity, and was then going to come back to the UK and apply to do a master's degree.
Yeah, and you know, as you mentioned, you said perhaps her family can do something quickly, Jonathan, because we're running out of time. Can you tell us a bit about the social media efforts by her brother in London to release her?
Absolutely. Her brother has now put up a petition online against her treatment and has collected over 700,000 signatures. Whether or not that's something the Iranian regime will observe and listen to is another question.
I would think pessimistically, perhaps not, but it does seem to be getting a lot of traction, and this case is certainly shocking the international community and especially those in the volleyball world. So we'll see what happens with it. Jonathan Sastrodati, thank you very much for being with us today. And coming up, Google signed a lease with NASA, but let's hear some more of this morning's headlines. Welcome back. It's still Friday, November 14th, 2014. This is still the morning edition, and I am still Meredith Ross, I hope. Thank you for staying with us. On to our next topic. A lot has been said about Tel Aviv. Most of the time, it's related, unfortunately, to wars and bad news. But the next story provides a different angle of this city. Veronica Gnocchi moved to Israel from Sweden 5 years ago and has recently shared her experiences from living in the city in her blog that went viral since it was posted. So we have the pleasure of today of being joined in the studio by Bubble Perspectives blogger Victoria Gnocchi. Good morning. Thank you for being with us. Now, okay, let's start from the beginning. Why did you decide to move to Israel 5 years ago?
Well, I met my boyfriend, which is Israeli. We met in Australia, and well, we didn't really plan to come here, but we ended up coming here, and we ended up staying. So yeah.
So young love brought you here.
Basically,
originally.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you got all these experiences together, and you created this blog. Tell us about the blog in the first place. This Bubble Perspectives.
Well, it's actually pretty new. I started it only in the summer, well, I started it firstly because of the situation that was in the summer, and I just felt the need to share what I was thinking and going through, and mostly it was meant to be for my family and my friends, and then I also started to write about other stuff, and then recently I made this last post, which was also just meant to be for myself basically.
Yeah, okay, but it turned out it went pretty viral. I mean, I must confess, it turned up on my Facebook feed. Yeah. So that's pretty significant. How did you react to that?
Well, I'm still not sure. It was really surprising. It just started, basically my boyfriend shared it on Secret Tel Aviv on the Facebook page. And from there on, it just spread everywhere.
And for our audience, just explain what Secret Tel Aviv is.
It's a Facebook page for everyone who lives in Tel Aviv, where you can share information about what's going on, if you want to sell stuff.
And these are mostly new immigrants, foreigners who moved to Israel. It's in English,
mostly,
right?
So it's in English.
It's a bit more user-friendly.
So he shared it there because he thought probably a lot of people there can relate to it, you lived a while in Tel Aviv, and then you can, see these signs.
Yeah, so let's talk about the different signs. I mean, first of all, were these all personal experiences that you had, the 20 different things, or did they come from experiences maybe friends had, or you just kind of gained this over time?
Most of it is, I would say, my personal experiences. I was when I was thinking about writing it, I was sitting and discussing with my boyfriend, different things that is typical that we experience every day in Tel Aviv, So we came up with some ideas together, but it's personal experience, most of it, yeah.
So of these 20 different experiences, 20 signs you've been in Tel Aviv too long, what do you think is, this might be a hard question, what do you think is the one that you really relate to the most?
It is a hard question. I'm just trying to remember what I wrote.
Okay.
Probably, I would say one of the ones I like the most though is the Gold Star one.
The Gold Star one.
I really like the Gold Star.
The Israeli beer, the local beer that everyone orders.
Because that's something I laugh about every time. You go out to a bar with a few friends, and then you ask the waitress, so what beer do you offer? And she's like, yeah, we have Weinsteffen and this and that. And it's oh, okay, so I'll have half a Gold Star.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time.
Exactly. It's like an initiation. You're part of the crew if you order Gold Star.
Exactly.
Now, I'll go over some of my favorite ones. You spend a big percentage of your salary on weddings.
Yeah.
So explain the wedding process here, because it's very different from Sweden.
Definitely. A lot of people get married. I think I wrote that now because we're in a period when all of our friends are getting married for the past year basically. So every second month there's someone getting married, and it's fun, but it's also really expensive because when you go to a wedding in Israel, you need to bring money as a wedding present, and it's usually based on how close you are to the people. There's a certain amount that you need to give, and And since most of our friends are close friends, we need to give quite a lot.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you end up, you know,
The better the
spending a
friend,
lot
the
of
bigger
money.
the price tag.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean,
Custom has to go.
And everyone is hoping the day you get married, you're gonna get most of it back, you know. So you kind
Right,
of have to
there's-
get married.
it's really interesting. You know, I know people who keep spreadsheets of how much they gave at their friend's wedding, so that
Right.
at their wedding they expect their friends to give that much
Yeah.
back. I mean, it's like an entire process. It's
love
really
the surprise.
interesting.
I think there's.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I heard there's actually websites where you can calculate how much you need to give depending on the criteria, like how close they are.
If it's like a
family.
coworker, if
Exactly.
it's like a college friend, so it's all changing.
Yeah.
What else that I think was really funny? You don't know how to exit Dizengoff Center through the same door you entered. Now, this is obviously for our viewers that might not know, a mall. It was built a very long time ago,
I
decades
heard
ago.
it was the first mall in Israel.
The
I'm not
first
sure if
mall
it's
in
true, but
Israel.
yeah.
It is the most confusing.
Yeah.
Shopping center
It's-
on the planet, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least that I've been
Intimidating.
in, yeah.
It has like ramps that go diagonal, and there's not one level. It's like
Yeah.
going around. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
I
wanna be
like
in
to
there
compare
drunk.
it with Hogwarts from Harry Potter, you know, where the stairs are changing all the time.
Veronica, that is
It's
genius.
like-
That's actually really genius. It's like
how I
Hogwarts.
feel,
So
yeah.
you're right. It's like you don't know how to, and God forbid you park your car there.
Ooh.
How do you find which parking lot? Because there's
Yeah.
actually, people don't understand, there's two sides of the mall
Yeah.
on different sides of the
Yeah.
street. So it is really confusing. What else? You know how to get drunk in the city without spending too much money. So what's the secret here for Tel Aviv locals?
The secret is, first of all, to know the bracelet bars. Like I mentioned, you know, you have all these bars where you go, you pay a price, you get a bracelet, and you just drink as much as you want. It's not expensive.
That's genius.
Yeah. It's also dangerous. It's really
Yeah,
dangerous.
but
I
as you
think
also mentioned, that everywhere in Tel Aviv is like 5 minutes away. So, you know, whether it's a
Yes.
cab ride or a stumble home,
Yeah.
it's, you know,
you can survive.
you can totally
I think
survive
though
that.
when they came up with this idea, it was like, you know, they were thinking about the Israelis, which usually drink a lot less than Europeans and Americans and whatever. So like they'll have maybe 3-4 beers, and then the Europeans come and they will pretty much empty the bar.
Yeah. Why do you think that is that Israelis drink less? Is it because of the
don't
price or just because
I think it's just different culture.
the culture?
Yeah.
So in Sweden, it's a different story.
Yeah. we drink a lot in Sweden.
That's really funny. Okay, so what else you are no longer affected by rudeness. So explain this one.
When I first came here, I was really bothered by how people acting on the streets and how people acting towards each other in general, and drivers, and you know, all these kind of things. But I noticed that lately it just doesn't get to me anymore.
You're like becoming Israeli
Israeli,
guy.
yeah. Israeli.
Yeah, you know, I think the culture, it's just, some people might say it's a good thing. It's very upfront. People
Yeah.
don't put up a show. If they
Exactly.
have something to say to you, they say it to your face, which you know, coming from a place like Sweden where everyone, I assume, is nice and everything's great and
Yeah.
everything's happy, kind of like the U.S., it's very difficult here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I feel like I kind of learned to appreciate it in a way, you know, because I rather have that like honest rudeness than
Yeah.
the false politeness. You
Well,
know?
it seems to be having an effect on you, and this was an awesome post, and
Thank
really,
you.
we wish you the best of luck, and we can't wait to see more of your blog posts. Veronica, thanks for being
Thank
here
you.
today. And we go now, we are joined again by Anthony Grant for the Viral Spiral. Speaking of viral, that is the web review.
Oh yeah, well, good morning again.
Good
You know,
morning
it's
again.
it's a warm, it's a kind of like a cool morning, and I'm thinking coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, coffee thoughts.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and although there is no Starbucks in Tel Aviv, unfortunately, I think. Although we love Tel Aviv coffee, and I think you mentioned coffee in your post too. Yeah, it's true. But Starbucks is good on the novelty beverages.
Yes.
And they have rolled out a new one. It is the chestnut praline latte.
Oh, that sounds divine.
It sounds divine and European, but apparently it's a fail. Because
It's a
according
fail?
to the initial web buzz is saying that it really wants to be, you know, Euro-y and sophisticated, but doesn't really succeed.
How is like tons of sugar and flavor, sophisticated. That sounds to me more American.
I mean, the whole praline thing is very Euro kind of thing.
Yeah?
I mean, because the pumpkin spice latte is sort of infamous at Starbucks.
What I would give for one right now.
Well, you can't have one.
Can we make a phone call? Does anyone have connection?
Yeah, I've got little Starbucks powdered packs, but it's just the regular flavor. But anyway, they're trying to ramp it up a level, and let's see if the Christmas season will make it more of a success. I don't know.
Well, we will see.
We will see. As we move on to the world of selfies, this guy Matthew Anderson, who may or may not be of Swedish extraction, he's got these amazing selfies which are making a hit apparently in LA. It was a big hit on Instagram, and he explores society's themes of gender and vanity, intersection thereof, and you get stuff like that. Yeah, so
I don't know whether it's beautiful or disturbing.
I don't know. It's kind of alarming.
Really...
Yeah, but it does make you rethink certain things, like
sure.
that.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's so LA, a perfect way of Instagram meeting Hollywood weirdness.
Yeah. He looks like a Playboy bunny who grew a beard.
Speaking of transformations, Taylor Swift.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Really?
Taylor is no longer recognizable on the cover of this magazine, Wonderland, and people are saying maybe it's a good thing because she's finally reinventing her image because it's always the same. You know?
She reminds me of a young Brooke Shields. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which I never thought would be a connection.
Nothing
with her.
came between her and her Calvins. Actually, something did, but that's another story.
Okay, don't want to know.
But yeah, she's. They say a brow pencil, works wonders, and that's what was helping to her au natural look.
It does, and we see her going from that really bright blonde, doe-eyed girl next door look to a more sophisticated artist.
Just sort of experimenting with different looks. Yeah, the Brooke Shields thing. It's kind of frightening.
I'm liking it though.
Yeah.
Working for her. All right.
Anyway, we got, of course, everyone is still talking about Kim Kardashian. Yeah. Now we know that we were talking about her posterior, but she has gone full frontal in the paper spread, paper magazine, and of course there it's artfully blacked out.
Is she really full frontal? She didn't wear anything covering some
I actually only
secret place.
Well, we know she didn't cover up the backside.
Right.
But the front side, I don't know. Maybe in the inside of the magazine, she is fully, artfully, but we should say, because French photographer Jean-Paul Goude, sort of working his photographic magic, and some people are saying it's pure art.
And some people are saying
it's pure crap.
Ridiculous.
No, I think it's a mixture of both.
Yeah.
I mean.
And look, we're seeing like satires already.
Yeah, there's the satires of the. It's like a thing on Twitter trying to sort of imitate the. The whole phenomenon. And, I don't know. Look, she's got to push the envelope. Otherwise, she wouldn't be Kim Kardashian, right?
That's true. But this is pushing it a little far. I don't know.
Far.
I don't know how I feel. And I'm a big Kim fan.
Yeah.
You know that.
Now she's a mother now. So she has to.
And this is what the buzz has been on the internet. It's like, you're a mom now. Imagine when North will see these pictures when she's, 13 or something.
Or maybe he won't be able to, because if this broke the internet, there won't be any circuitry left for North to see them.
Exactly.
They'll burn the negatives.
Yeah, exactly. Well.
Anyway, what can she do next? Time will tell.
I don't think she can do anything beyond that.
And she's got to go. She's got to do a movie or something at this point.
I think she's got to land on a comet and then do that.
Yeah, that comet took a selfie of itself. Do you know that?
That's incredible.
Yeah, or the space probe,
That's
the
really
fillet.
Cool. That's very cool.
Controversy in Chicago.
Hey, hometown.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
Oh. Chicago
What's
woman
going on there?
is suing Chicago over the right to bare her boobs basically in public. And she's 41-year-old Sanoko Tagami, and she thinks that she should be able to go topless. She tried to do it in August. She was fined, apparently like $100 plus a $40 fee. And she is trying to make Go Topless Day more of a legitimate thing. And I'm thinking, isn't Chicago kind of cold?
Yeah.
Regardless.
Well, this was August, and actually what people don't know is it can get just as hot as it is in Tel Aviv.
No.
It's extreme weather in Chicago.
Is it?
But, about the story, she's in the U.S. This is a country that practices a lot of censorship. And,
but Kim Kardashian?
Go to Greece.
That's the thing, but look at, this is interesting. Kim Kardashian, it's like, okay, yawn. But then this in Chicago, it's a complicated country.
Maybe a bit of a double standard.
A bit of a double standard, yeah. So we'll
okay,
see what
well,
happens.
best of luck to her and
her
may
endeavors.
she walk in the summer months. Let's just say that.
This week was the 30-year anniversary of Like a Virgin.
Really?
Madonna's album, of course. And which site we had? VH1 had a little article about 10 things millennials, a word I love, don't understand about Madonna.
So what don't they
I'm going
understand?
to enumerate them all for you right now.
Okay, and please do it quickly because we are running out of time.
She's still relevant regardless of her age because
Yes.
it's not just about how old you
And
are.
she
but
doesn't age. Can I just say that?
Thank you.
She looks the same and it's scary.
Just
yes.
like Kim Kardashian's booty. Anyway, also, she's a damn good songwriter, according to the article. And she was talking about social issues before it was cool to talk about some of those social issues. Yeah, so that's also...
She was really a trendsetter. She really,
pushing the envelop, actually,
She did.
without having to take everything off. I mean, arguably.
Even though she did eventually.
Eventually, yeah. This is controversial. So they say that Like a Prayer and Ray of Light will always be more influential than Lady Gaga's Fame Monster or even Beyonce's 2014 Beyonce.
Okay, well, we'll see in another 30 years if that's still true.
We'll
Tony
see.
Grant, thank you
Okay.
for this incredible web review. This was really entertaining.
Thank you.
And coming up next, everything you need to know about the signing of Google's 60-year lease with NASA. But first, let's hear some more of this morning's headlines. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. We are joined now in studio by mega geek author and game designer Ziv Kitaro. Good morning. Okay, so we understand a lot is going on in the space.
Tons of stuff.
area.
Actually, in the past 2 months, I think we spoke about space more than ever.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. So we just landed the satellite, right? The thingy on
the comet.
Comet.
It's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that took 10 years. But now we have a thing that will take 60 years, which is how long Google is going to lease Hangar 1 from NASA. Now, why is this interesting? This is just real estate news. Well, first of all, so the thing is, NASA has a lot of real estate on Earth, and they, as we all know, they got their budget shrunk, so they're looking for ways to improve themselves. Google, on the other hand, like many high-tech, really big high-tech company, one like Elon Musk, are looking into space as the next step for themselves, like research better of humanity or control of ads on the moon. When you eventually land there, you will want, your personalized ads, right? So that's what Google does. So they'll put ads everywhere.
Wow.
So that's what they need to research.
No place escapes Google.
Yes. So they took this space. It will cost them $1.6 billion for next 60 years. Hangar 1 is one of the older real estate that NASA holds. No one knows exactly what Google is going to do there, but
this is the
speculation
biggest question is like, what
Yes.
are you going to do?
So they do have research into space flight, right? They're one of the companies that said they're going to go out into space. They're not doing much at the moment, but for all intended and purposes, we should think about Google as really we know that they're not an ad company anymore, right? They're doing tons of stuff. They went into robotics. They purchased all kind of AI companies. Now they're doing this, and this is not just some contribution to the U.S. That's something they are going to do something big with space. That's
they're doing so much
obvious.
naturally. Space would be the next option.
Right.
Why not?
Because
Google's everywhere.
Google
It's
can
really
do
amazing.
anything, and this is amazing. Well, they're going to improve the place. They're going to do all kind of nice things. People will be able to come in and see, the historical. They'll do some
Restoration
probably
work.
some restoration, but there is going to be a really big. You don't buy a place for 60 years for $1.6 billion. Well, that's what they make in a day. So that's interesting.
Very interesting.
Next,
we will see what happens there.
more interesting in the short run. Elon Musk, again in the news, they're going to build 700 micro satellites that will be sent into space and bring free and unfettered internet to all. And that's from tweets that he actually tweeted. So
So for everyone in the world?
Well, basically, yeah,
or...
when you have 700 of them. So SpaceX is still in the early stages of developing advanced microsatellites operating in large formation, announced in 2 to 3 months. That was his first tweet regarding that. And then someone asked him, will it be, unfettered internet? And he said, unfettered certainly, and at a very low cost. So not free to all.
Okay,
but,
so it's not free.
But other quotes from the past did say that, well, Elon Musk and other companies, again, are looking for ways to make the internet free, because for them, that was, where they grew up, and that's what they want. They want unfettered internet. They want internet is without regulation, especially now with everything that goes with the FCC and Obama. And the restriction that they're trying to do over the net. So we need these people to push the envelope and create new technologies and new ways for all of us to communicate. Because at the moment, the internet, we look at it as something, as obvious, right? We have the internet, we can do whatever we want.
We take
the
it
internet,
for granted now,
yes.
Considering where it came from and how long it used to take to dial up.
Exactly.
I mean, I can still repeat tone by tone the.
Exactly. It wasn't that long. It wasn't that long. And people now are like, obviously I have internet in my pocket, right, on my phone. And the internet is in danger. Every day is in danger. We're not in China, so we don't feel that. And we're not in Iran, so we don't feel that. But the internet is in danger, and our governments all over the world, the US, Israel, all these places, the government is looking into ways to constrain and control this communication venue. And we, as the people, we have to acknowledge that and understand that it's not something that we should take for granted, and we should support things like that, because this is important.
I'm curious there, with an issue with cyber hacking, cyber terrorism, where does that come in if the internet is provided by people like Elon Musk and these free services?
Well,
who controls the security there?
Well, as part of, who controls the security at the moment? It's not the government anyways. The companies that provide for example, if you look in at Comcast in the US, right? Those are the providers. They take care of most of the issues. So now Elon Musk and his companies and other companies, Google is also doing fast internet. The experiment is not ended, has not yet ended yet in Texas. So they're doing also really big broadband internet. All these companies are going into it because they understand that at the moment they have enough power and clout to actually push this against government and create a new internet with better facilitation. Now, we also have to understand that they don't do this only for themselves, right? It's not for not for ourselves. It's not for the sake of humanity only.
Everyone is somewhat self-serving.
They have, yeah, exactly. But at the moment, I do, in the way that our government is working, I do prefer to have these two powerhouses. Those big companies who grew up from the net and the government fighting it up. I hope that we will win.
Yes.
Or lose. We might lose.
We might lose. That's right.
Last.
Okay, last thing you have for
Jonathan
us,
Nolan.
but not least.
No, Jonathan Nolan. He's brother of Christopher Nolan, also wrote Interstellar and other movies that the Nolan brothers, they work together. Now, he has a brilliant show on CBS, which is called Person of Interest. It's about AI, it's about government surveillance, etc., etc., etc. And now he's going to bring the Foundation trilogy. It's more than a trilogy, but he's going to focus on the trilogy. The Foundation trilogy is a brilliant trilogy by Isaac Asimov.
Okay.
In it, a mathematician is creating this algorithm that can predict the future, the next 10,000 years of the human society. And he creates this special group of people that will help. He sees the decline of humanity, and he creates this special group of people that will help humanity rise again and control space.
Interesting storyline.
It's a very, very interesting book. It affected a lot of the science fiction and what we read today. And actually, in Person of Interest, Jonathan Nolan had inserted a few ideas from that book. So it's going to be, he loves these books, and not a lot of people know them. And it's going to be very interesting on HBO. So hopefully,
and HBO, as we know, creates, fabulous, fabulous.
The only thing I'm scared of is that they'll add nudity, because there's zero nudity in this book. Zero.
Well, they'll find a way. It's HBO.
There isn't one
That's
intimate.
like a prerequisite for HBO. We've
It's like there's no intimate scene in all 5 books, right? No, there's.
There will be now.
Yeah, well, that's going to be interesting. But other than that, I'm really excited.
Actually, you know, I have to confess, I've never heard of this trilogy, but that sounds really exciting.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So we'll see what comes of that.
Yes.
Zeev, thank you very much for being
Thank
here
you.
with all this space news. And now we're also joined in studio by Ynet America's journalist Roni Stav. What's up with pop culture these days?
All right, so we're gonna try and combine the space and the culture. We were talking about HBO, so I'm gonna try and nitpick into.
Perfect.
So internet, right? We were talking about internet and free internet. So the 34 track of The Art of McCartney, the compilation featuring all-star musicians covering songs of Paul McCartney from his work with the Beatles, with the Wings, with his solo career, is now out streaming in the internet.
Ooh.
Yeah. So among the artists are Bob Dylan, B.B. King, Smokey Robinson, Barry Gibbs.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. Brian Williamson, Billy Joel, Kiss, Willie Nelson. I mean, everyone and everything is going to be in this a little bit over 2 hours of a compilation. And it will come out officially on November 18th and will also be available in an expanded deluxe edition with an additional 8 tracks, including covers by Alice Cooper and The Cure.
What?
Which is, I'm excited about that to come out.
So that's next Tuesday.
So that's, absolutely. I
Is
mean,
it Thursday?
is it?
Next Thursday.
We don't know
18th?
dates.
18th?
We don't
November?
know dates
18th?
anymore.
Yes.
It's coming. It's coming really soon.
Next week.
Next week.
Next week it's happening, and we're going to be able to listen to. I know.
So if people don't show up to work next week, we can understand that they're
they're
hibernating
like,
and listening to this musical genius cooperation.
And
That's
1,000 very lucky people will be able to purchase a set-box version that is limited to 1,000 copies. That will include hardcover book, a DVD documentary about the making of the comp, and artwork signed by the Beatles associate Alan Eldridge. That's I know it's like
too cool. This is like
everyone and everything has something
thing
to do.
to happen in music in a long time.
Basically, and all musicians have been talking about how much Paul McCartney and his songs has influenced them. And one of my favorite parts was Billy Joel talk about the fact he's doing Live and Let Die, which is fantastic on its own. And he's talking about the fact that he was saying that we used to do it in soundcheck. Matter of fact, we still do it in soundcheck. It's just fun to play because it's so over the top. So really, I mean, Paul McCartney.
I'm like trying to imagine how that's going to sound, and I can't. And that's just.
So listen to it because it's on streaming.
We'll be listening. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, we're very excited about that.
Yeah.
And from Paul McCartney to Russell Brand, I have nothing to say that connects the two together. They're British.
Okay.
There we go. There we go. Good job.
Thanks, guys.
Good one. So Russell Brand used to be a comedian, talented actor. Now he's all into being very much anarchist, political activist. Doing his YouTube channel, The Trues, talking about the government, about what he thinks, about people have to go out to the streets and protest. And his fan is kind of worn down from all of this. Here is the truth, power to the people. They kind of had enough. So there was one tweet that used part of his new book that just came out, and then it added the hashtag Parklife, just like the Blair clip from 1994, when we hear someone just talking, and then Parklife. And that had over 9,000 shares on Twitter after this original hashtag Parklife. So everyone started to talk about the fact that, Russell Brand, you're kind of too much for us right now, but it's Russell Brand, so of course he needed to do something
How do you respond to
back
something
at
like
them.
that? Your
So
fans.
he created a clip of Parklife, a new clip of Parklife, using a sharp knife and different words that will rhyme with Parklife, talking about what he thinks about the fact that his fan thinks that he's talking too much. So
that's actually really fun. It kind of reminds me, looks-wise as well, of Weird Al Yankovic.
I know, It's and it all works together. Like, it sounds like something Russell Brand is trying to go in that alley. I think
they
it's
have
working.
the same hair.
Yeah, they have kind of the same look. Yeah, he doesn't have as much curl as Weird Al, but okay, power to him.
Here's Russell Brand doing a little bit of a park life of his own, thinking about what he has to say about.
Okay, well maybe he'll gain some of his fans back by this.
Touche
you
to
have
Russell
to
Brand.
respect him for putting himself out there amid all this criticism. So.
Yeah, and he added some more government critique in this clip. So like he's staying true to himself, and that's something that we have to acknowledge because not everyone's doing it these days. So
that is true.
So touche, Russell Brand.
Touche, Russell Brand.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
And now what we were all excited about before airing, Hocus Pocus 2. Maybe it will finally happen. So every Halloween, everyone's talking about it, right? Every Halloween, everyone's watching.
It's
Hocus
really
Pocus.
A cult film.
It is. It really is. It's one of those that everyone's talking about, everyone's loving, everyone's knowing lines from the movie. And every Halloween, I think everyone's watching it, right? Or talking about it, or whatever that is. And through the years, the fans has been speculating about, is there going to be Hocus Pocus 2 or not? And now Bette Midler has something to say about it. So in a Q&A session, she was asked whether she'd do a sequel. And she was saying, you have to go to send in your cards to the Walt Disney Company, the ball's in their court. So basically, she was saying, I have canvassed the girls, and they are willing to do it, but we have no say in it. So if you want Hocus Pocus 2, ask the Walt Disney Company. You have been so adorable. This has been most enlightening, sister. And was doing the whole
of course. You know what I have to say to that
moment.
is bless you, Bet.
I know.
Please. I
know. I'm not sure it's actually happening. And then the rap of Sarah Jessica Parker was kind of like, she's doing movies. We don't have time for that. And we're not sure it's actually happening. Earlier this year, they have been speculating that Tina Fey was about to produce and be part of Hocus Pocus 2, and that turned out to be false. But fans has been speculating.
That could be kind of like a Hocus Pocus meets Mean Girls, and that would just be
but it's not happening.
It's not happening.
I'm sorry. It's not there at all.
Crowdfunding.
But you know,
but
I believe that when people talk a lot about something, it's because something's happening. Someone's like, putting the fire in the engines, trying to make.
Well, let's hope that's happening. I mean, seeing a Hocus Pocus 2 would just make my year.
I know.
So Ronnie, thank you very much for this segment here today. Again, fingers crossed, Hocus Pocus 2. Let's hope it happens. And that is all for today's show. Join us again on Monday morning for the latest of the morning edition right here on I-24 News. Have a great weekend.